Hi, I'm Dan White, and I'm the CEO of the West Nova Chamber and the producer of Chamber Television. It's a show about interesting people, interesting things, and interesting places. We're here in Digby with B Networks, and as stated, my name is Dan White, and you are.
I'm Brian Jodry, the president of B Network.
And what do you do?
What do we do? That's a big question. In a nutshell, we get involved with small and medium businesses with managing their IT infrastructure and cybersecurity.
Right.
So from a day-to-day operational perspective, we help to keep their technology running, but we try to implement things in a way that we can do it with security in mind, trying to help them leverage technology to create efficient business processes, and then just help them to be able to collaborate better, both within and without their company.
Right. So who's your ideal customer?
Our ideal customer would be, we deal with a lot of businesses that are in the, like 5 to 25 technology user spectrum. We deal with people across a lot of different industries, but it's typically people who value the security of their data. They understand that investing in technology is an investment in their business and their efficiency and their scalability.
Right. So it sounds like you medium to large companies. Would you, if one man Dan walks in and wants help, would you look after him, or would that be something you'd rather not do?
We certainly don't mind getting involved with companies like that. It isn't something that I'd say that we specifically target.
Right.
But we have a process we go through to assess whether we are on the same plane as far as shared values go, so that it makes for a good working relationship between us and them.
Right. Okay, so to what extent would you help somebody? For instance, they said, I need to set up a computer system. Should I be coming to you and advice on what to buy, what to set up, how to do it? Or would they, for instance, hire you to come in and just do everything, or somewhere in between?
We're certainly capable of doing everything. We usually find that when we get involved in helping businesses set this up, the earlier in the process we get involved, the easier it is for us to help them accomplish their goals. We certainly don't have any requirements for everybody to buy absolutely everything from us, but we like to educate customers about what their baseline should be so that their technology will work for them efficiently.
Right. So what's the first sort of question somebody should ask you about their systems? What should they be saying, telling you, so that you know what to do, what they need?
A lot of times what happens is people will come in with a specific problem, either hardware issues, email security is one that pops up all the time. And a lot of times that's where we'll start a dialogue, is about how they're doing things at that point in time as a result of whatever particular issue has kind of brought them our way. We'll start asking open-ended questions at that point in time to try and learn a bit more about what it is they're doing and what their goals are, and just see if there's an opportunity there that's beneficial to both of us, because ultimately we find those are the successful relationships.
Yeah. You mentioned cybersecurity. Just how big a deal is that today?
I think that in the last 5 years, it's just gone on a curve.
Right.
We're seeing more things in the news every day about big businesses being damaged financially, reputationally by cyber criminals. And, the big thing is that the small and medium businesses are getting hit just as much or more than larger companies. They tend to have less security, less data protection. And it's one of those things that a lot of these don't really get put in place until after somebody's already experienced one of these incidents. So, it's one of those things where a lot of people think a small business can fly under the radar, but ultimately you don't hear about it because you're not too small to be hacked. You're too small to make the news.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if somebody's storing their files in the cloud, is that any safer than storing it on their own computers?
Well, when it comes to important data, there's the whole 3-2-1 backup principle where you essentially want, 3 copies of your data. One of them is obviously your working set. You should have a second easily accessible set, and make sure that there is always a third copy that's air-gapped or offline somehow. So this comes into play whether you're dealing with data that's resident on a computer or whether you've stored it in the cloud. There are always ways to back things up, and we get people like, well, I put it in the cloud. It is backed up. If you take a look at we do a lot of work with Microsoft 365. So if you take a look at their terms of service, they're essentially responsible for providing the service to you, but you are responsible for all the data that you put on it. So they don't guarantee that that's a layer of protection that's going to be there if you have to call on it.
Would that be the same as Google Cloud?
Yeah, G Suite. Again, we also recommend that businesses are looking at working on the business platforms in the cloud, not using like the free Google Drive or like a personal Dropbox.
Yeah.
There are controls and tools that you can use to, enhance functionality, backups, and security for those business platforms. And you have greater data security because your data is kind of encrypted to your account, right, versus those free public accounts, which we know that they mine for advertising data.
So what you're saying is that you're far better to be, for instance, on a paid Google workspace with the paid business plan. You're going to get better security. Yeah,
either G Suite or again, like Microsoft 365's business platform, not the home version of the tools.
Yeah, so business version, that if your data is important, you probably shouldn't be trying to save the little bit of money, because it's not that expensive. I use Google Cloud Workspace myself. It's not expensive. I assume Office 365 would be the same.
Yeah, I mean, they have tiered pricing depending on exactly what you're using and how you're using it.
So is there enhanced security you can get from Microsoft or Google?
There are options from Microsoft. There are options. We leverage some third-party tools, and a lot of them are channel specific, which means we're dealing with vendors that deal with service providers. So we have access to, for lack of a better word, toys that some people can't get.
Right.
And offload the responsibility of having to have the technical knowledge in-house of how to monitor and maintain these tools.
Yeah.
When it comes to backups, we've run into situations where people are like, well, I have backups, but they haven't been updated recently. Nobody's checking to see if they're happening successfully. And, we've run into scenarios where people go to restore off it and find out that it's just not there.
Well,
It's an external hard drive. In one case that I can think of with a business client, it was an external hard drive plugged into a server that was backing up data on a regular scheduled event on the server. And they had a hardware failure, and we went to restore it, and the external drive had failed 4 months ago based on the log research we did after the fact. There was nothing there. It was gone.
I can back that up. Before I went to the cloud, I had 3 remote hard drives disconnected. So I had a failure. So I had nowhere to go to backup. It's quite current. So I went to do the backup. It was dead. Wouldn't back up. No problem. I've got 2 more. I go to the second one and it was dead. And then I really started sweating, but luck would have it, the third one I was able to restore from.
Yeah.
But it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah. So, I mean, testing your backups is an important part of the process that often gets overlooked until people get to the point where they need their backups.
Yeah.
And that's not when you want to find out that it's not working.
Yeah, I can identify with that. So there's a perception that it's really expensive. Now, I can see a big company can afford whatever, it has to afford whatever it costs. But let's take a small company with 1 to 4 employees. Do you have that kind of protection? Is there a budget that you could talk about what it might cost them to be secure?
Well, we have a process that we run when we get involved with a new business client. And we have kind of an IT and cyber risk assessment that we will do that gives us an opportunity to look at how people are using technology, what processes they have in place, and ultimately what's in the depth and the breadth of the technology that they're using. their equipment, where their data is stored, what kind of technology they're leveraging for their business. And by taking that look at things, it allows us to understand the best way to serve them. So ultimately, it's one of those things like, going to the doctor to find out what's wrong and what you need to do in order to get to where you want to get.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that the cost would definitely be in the hundreds and probably in the thousands of dollars to be safely set up.
Well, I mean, again, it depends on the size of the business. If it's a one-man shop, it's really, it's not a huge amount of money. If you're dealing with, we have businesses with a couple dozen users that spend a couple $1,000s a month, but we're doing a lot of things for those businesses and getting involved a lot. Essentially operating as their full-time IT department, just fractionalized on the basis of them not having to pay a full-time person to be there.
Right. So that's interesting because basically what I'm hearing that you're an IT service and that you're available, you set it up, you're there, but you don't have to be paid full time. So that would make total sense. And I'm assuming that when you set somebody up, that just the security part of it is just part of setting up.
Yeah, I mean, essentially when we lead out with our offering after we've done an IT and cyber risk assessment on their business, we've got a package that we put together and go, okay, these are the things we do. And a lot of it is standardized across the businesses. And obviously there are some things that get tailored based on, whether or not the organization has a server. Typically, your small, less than 10 user shop servers are really rare. Versus, we've got companies we deal with where there's a couple dozen users and, servers just a necessity. So things like that are a lot of what impact the differences, or whether there are multiple offices, or, does everybody work together in one space? Do you have remote workers all over the place? How do they need to be able to access data? Where does the data reside? These kinds of things help us to formulate a really specific picture of how they operate and what we can do to help them with their security and efficiency.
Yeah. Now, if they having an operation, the insurance is a big deal. So I'm assuming that the insurance company would insist on things being set up properly to be covered. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then your insurance would be null and void.
We've seen all kinds of interesting things when it comes to cyber insurance. I mean, one of the interesting things people can do, if they're just interested in understanding a bit more about cybersecurity, is talk to your insurance broker. Ask them for a cyber insurance application and read through it and see the kinds of things that are being asked for by the insurance companies, just to kind of educate yourself a little bit on exactly what's out there. We have gotten involved with helping our clients with cyber insurance applications, putting controls in place to make sure that they're meeting the requirements that the insurance companies are laid out, and trying to address any concerns that the insurance companies might have about how they operate. But yeah, you're right. I've also seen people go down through those insurance applications and check off a bunch of stuff and just assume that they were doing it when they weren't. And that certainly has a big impact if they were ever to make a claim, because they, like anything else, insurance companies go through a discovery process when a claim is made. And, if you tell them that you've got, vulnerability management and endpoint detection and response, and you don't, that's definitely going to impact your claim.
No kidding. So what's point, what do you call it, a point of inspection?
Endpoint detection and response.
That's the word. Yeah. So what is that exactly?
So it's a technology commonly referred to as EDR, and it kind of sits a layer below the antivirus and does a lot of behavioral analysis on the computer, so it can catch things that are stepping around first layers of security and starting to do strange things in the background that probably aren't good.
Right. So that would be like a monthly service that you pay for, or that would be a program?
We run an EDR solution that falls under, you get into this detection response, and there's about 7 different acronyms and different ways this can go. So we use one that is an MDR, it's a managed detection and response. So we have a security operations center partner that monitors this through a piece of software that we leverage so that we have 24/7, 365 eyes on it. If you look at the statistical data, most of the attacks that happen against business by cyber criminals happen between about 7 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Okay, right. It's
So-
almost better to shut your computer off at night.
Yeah, but again, if you have a server, that's not necessarily an option. Or sometimes you have machines that are always running because they're attached to equipment that they monitor or
Right, yeah.
things like that. So it's not always an option.
So this sounds like pretty high-tech stuff. But how long have you been doing this?
Well, I mean, I've been tearing computers apart for 35 years, but on the cybersecurity side of things, it's always been kind of an interest of mine. I've been involved professionally in networking for about half my life now. When we started transitioning from just an IT service provider into the cybersecurity space was when we saw the shift really starting to happen as far as the escalation of cyber attacks on our clients and clients in similar sizes in different geographies across North America. So I would say we've spent the last few years seriously refining our security offering to stack that on top of the IT service and support thing.
Right.
So we've got probably a solid 3 to 4 years into really bolstering our process and our technology as far as the cybersecurity side of things goes.
So is there a lot of competition in Southwest Nova for what you do? It sounds like it might be a little bit of exclusive.
It's an expensive thing to get into. I'm not going to lie. Like we went through a period where, there was a lot of investing time and money into where we wanted to get to. I don't think there are many companies in Southwest Nova that have delved into cybersecurity to the depth that we have. But I know there are other technology providers out there that have an awareness of it and that, ultimately everybody's got something cybersecurity wise baked into their offering or they're just doing their clients a disservice at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like you've got a really well-balanced package of services. Cybersecurity sounds like, to me, like a flagship.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you do a lot of other things because you just like to look after things. So what else could you share with our the viewers about what you do and why they should do business with you?
Well, I like to think that we can really bring a fully rounded offer to the table. The IT service and support thing is obviously necessary in a business, especially a smaller business where, you're not necessarily going to have a dedicated resource in-house.
Yeah.
And it's just not economical to do so. If you take somebody who's got networking and cybersecurity experience and you want to bring them into your business, you could easily spend $100,000 a year or something with that skill set. Then you kind of take it on top of that doesn't bring in any of the licensing of the technology that a business needs on top of that.
That's right.
So we're trying to chop it into pieces where we can give people the hours that they need in the run of a week, along with the technology and the management oversight of the technology.
Right.
In a way that it's, accessible to a business. Because what business doesn't need to be able to manage their technology at this point in time? It's just everywhere.
Yeah. So how do people get in touch with you?
Well, you can give us a call at 902-245-6657, by email at info@bntw.ca. That's Bravo Nancy Tango Whiskey.ca.
Yeah. And you have a website.
Yeah, we have a website. We have a Facebook page that people can message us through. Phone and email is probably the quickest way to get something in front of us. So.
Well, that sounds really interesting. So we've had an interesting discussion about computers and software and cybersecurity, and you know how to get in touch with Brian. Brian, it's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.